Hello, today is Wednesday, May 20th, 2015, and I am your host, Sue Brown, and welcome to info2rail, your freight train to modern media. How y'all doing today? Welcome to our show, and we have a great show in store for you today. We are very fortunate to have entrepreneur, author, speaker, media host, and management consultant with more than 25 years of experience with an entrepreneurial spirit. She has owned and operated 8 different companies since 1987. Laurie Calzada will be with us today. First, we're going to have a little glimpse into the missing persons files. Our first one out there is Danielle, or Danny Lewis, age 21, was last seen riding her bike near 221 Linda Lane in Fort Collins, Colorado at about 11:45 a.m. Thursday, May 14th, 2015. Lewis has a seizure disorder and does not have her medication with her. Lewis is 5 foot 8 inches tall, weighs 130 pounds, has brown hair and hazel eyes. She was wearing a black fleece jacket and blue jeans. Lewis was riding a black bicycle with neon green front spokes. Actual bike shown on the bottom left. The pictures will be on our website, so please come take a look. Her phone is off and was last pinged at 2:30 p.m. near the Windsor exit. Anyone with any information, please come forward. Contact Fort Collins Police Service at 970-221-6540 or call your local 911. Our second one to bring to you guys today is Brianna Herman, age 15, was last seen in San Diego, California on April 27th, 2015. Her car was found abandoned in the El Sereno area of Los Angeles. A private investigator has been helping the girl's family, getting information that she has been seen possibly being forced to prostitute herself in the LA area. She may be in the company of a man identified as Dean Henderson, age 20, also known as Timothy Dean Rivera. He's on the bottom left of this picture, guys. Information was received that Brianna was locked in a room with only a mattress at the home where her car was found. Police checked the house and found a room fitting the description, even the mattress, but no Brianna. The home belongs to a relative of Henderson. Brianna is 5 foot 4 inches tall. She weighs 118 pounds. She has blonde hair and brown eyes. Come on, guys. Anyone with any information on her location, let's get her home where she belongs. Whatever she's going through, we got to get her home. Please contact the San Diego Police Department at 619-531-2844 or 619-531-2000 or dial your local 911 immediately. The case number on that is 150-180-98, and is in Nancy. It's really important to me, you guys, as I tell you this every week. I know I sound like a broken record, but we got to band together here and we got to look for these people. I try to bring you 2 each week, or each interview. I try to bring you 2 different missing persons. And you know what? It just takes one person to see that missing person and have the courage to come forward and say something. Let's save a life today, you guys. All right, we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we will have Laurie Calzada with us. Stay tuned. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Okay, we are back with Laurie Calzada. Having sold her last corporation in 2010, Laurie now dedicates her time to helping others achieve great levels of success in life and business. She has hosted a monthly TV talk show, The Big Money Idea, and has written and presented on many topics such as leadership, mastering change, coaching, team building, and finding your purpose in life. Her focus is to motivate those who have a desire to excel, and she is a believer that you can accomplish anything with enough determination and ambition. Laurie's outstanding career has allowed her to consult and present for hundreds of Fortune 1000 companies, as well as numerous non-for-profit organizations. She has hosted and and emceed many fundraising events for causes she believes in so dearly. Her message is about empowering people, personally and professionally, to make a difference in the world and the lives you touch. You are given only one life, and she helps others to live it to the fullest. Welcome to info2rail, Laurie, and thank you very much for being on our show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Sue.
Can you start out by telling us about you and what you do and how you got started in all the things you do?
Well, I'm an entrepreneur by trade. I've owned 8 businesses, sold 7, and I'm a child abuse survivor, but I never really started speaking about it until later in life. It takes you a while to kind of even come to terms with what's happened, and I'm 47 now. At the age of 40, I really started. I've always been in the training, speaking, or technology businesses, and I ended up telling my story a little bit more, and ended up selling my last company in 2010, and really dedicating a lot of my time now to speaking in both child abuse prevention and the National Association for Mentally Ill and different organizations, just about surviving and thriving and how not to let your past define where your future's going.
Absolutely. That is great. I think we need more positive in this world. I think that if we can lift these people up, I mean, in this day and age, it seems like everybody is giving up hope for the way the world is going. But with positive enforcement, I think that we can make this world a lot more positive and give people a lot more hope.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, that's why. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you could tell us about your journey that you're on.
Well, I have my agent, Lisa Calzada from Image Entertainment, is really a big advocate of what I do. I ended up about a year and a half ago starting penning a trilogy based on the story of my life. And really, I've had people who said, wow, how have you been so successful based on all of this abuse? I was abused by my mother physically, and she was mentally ill, and then I was abused, sexually molested by my uncle for years, started at the age of 4, and then ended up being raped at the age of 16. And I really took years of kind of going down this journey of kind of the healing process, and so as I've told the story a little bit more, people are like, well, how did you do this? I'm so angry, or at this person or that person. So I ended up saying, well, gosh, how did I do it? It's kind of like if you're in a storm and you're in the boat, you're just basically doing whatever you can to kind of move forward and survive the storm. And so I ended up starting penning this trilogy about really how I did do it and the different stages I went through and some of the therapies I've been through. I've gone through a lot of spiritual healing, and as I did that, I've done a lot in child abuse prevention, and I had a film director approach me about doing it in a movie, and that's kind of on the back burner right now because of some other things we're doing. And so that's kind of been my journey is really 2 things. Number 1, really getting out there how much child abuse does occur and that we don't know about. And number 2 is really helping the people who've been through any abusive situation, whether it was child abuse, whether it's domestic violence at any point in your life, and really just helping them realize you can survive this. And it's not about what happened to you, it's about what you're going to do to move forward.
Can you tell us, was God a big part of your forgiveness and how you made it through this?
I was raised, I am very spiritual. I was raised very, very strict Southern Baptist. I am not Southern Baptist anymore. I went through my own kind of searching. I studied several different religions, from Hinduism to Buddhism to Christianity. And yes, God has definitely been a big part of it, and He's been a big part of that journey and that healing process. I've gone through a lot of meditation. One thing really in the Christian world, we talk a lot about the prayer aspect, but really praying is asking, meditating is hearing the answers. And I had never really known that until I really got into my 30s and realized, okay, you can ask for anything you want, but you really have to be still and know where you're headed. And so it is a very, very big part of my healing process. I do yoga and meditation. I've gone and stayed in ashrams that have really helped me kind of balance myself. I've done a lot of studying of the Eastern medicines. So it's definitely, whether you want to call it God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it does exist and it is out there to help you.
What was the exact moment when you knew what you had to do to fix your life?
There's definitely some pinnacle moments and several, I call them aha moments. As a teen, there was a pretty pinnacle moment that I was actually in a teen shoplifting ring and had been caught. And I was sitting in the interrogation room and really realized I have a decision right now to follow this path my past has taken me, or really to change where my destiny is. And that was a pinnacle moment. And I did make a lot of changes in my life. Probably the next big change was really when I became a mother, which was in 2002. I adopted 2 kids from Russia, and that was a big change where I realized who protects our children. And so many people talked about, well, if you're abused, then you're going to abuse. And I hear that so much in the work I do, and it just really upsets me because we can break the cycle, and people need to know how to break the cycle. And just because someone's abused, it doesn't mean it gives them the immediate right to become the abuser.
Absolutely.
So I think becoming a mother was pretty big pinnacle moment of that.
Can you tell us how we can go about meditation for those people who don't? I mean, I've tried meditation, and the problem I have is I guess I'm doing it wrong because I fall asleep.
Well, I mean, a lot of people do. A lot of people, their mind wanders. I go at 1,000 miles per hour, so I totally get that. When you first start meditating, you really do it in small chunks. So, first of all, find your quiet place, wherever that is. Mine happens to be, I have a meditation chair in the corner of my bedroom, and it's the best place I can meditate. It's like my little, shrine there that I can just really escape into my own world. The other thing, I love labyrinths. If you have a labyrinth in your area, go walk a labyrinth, because that meditative walk through that labyrinth is a symbolism of you going within. If you go take a walk in the woods to meditate, if you can't sit still. But the other thing, if you really, one thing they teach a lot in kind of the Hindu religion is that if your mind is wandering, then use a guided meditation. And there's some great ones out there on YouTube. And start with a 5-minute meditation or a 10-minute meditation. So there's a lot of ways to get started. Once you get started, but there's some days I can sit there and meditate for 30 minutes and just totally get lost in Laurie land, as I call it. But other days, I'll sit there and I just can't do it. And if your mind can't settle itself, then it's just not meant to be at that moment.
How do we know when
Even if you do it one day a week, you'd be amazed what the difference it'll make in your life.
How do we know when we're hearing what it is we need to hear when we're meditating?
Great question. It was in 2000, let's think about this, maybe 2009. No, it was 2007. I had a pinnacle moment. It's written in one of my books that I literally heard this very, very loud voice. And my friends now call it Godfrey as their nickname for him. And whether you want to, it's the Holy Spirit in Christianity, Hinduism, they call it your higher self. Whatever you want to call that, it does exist. And you need to listen to that. And the only time you can really hear it is usually when you are very still. And God put that internal intuition into us. And always follow your intuition. I can tell you many times in my life that especially in business, that all the numbers lined up or all the circumstances lined up, and I'd say, oh, no, this is the way I need to do it. And that internal voice, I'd wake up at 2 a.m. saying, gosh. And I remember every time I went against that internal voice, I don't care how good the business end of it looked, it always turned out bad because I didn't listen to that internal voice. And then other times where I was like, I can't figure out, I've had times you're driving down the highway and I'm like, I'm going to take this exit. And I don't know why, but I do it. And is it preventing me from having an accident 5 miles down the road? Don't know. But I will always listen to that internal voice now.
So it's not actually a physical voice. It's basically listening to your gut feeling.
It comes in two forms. One is that gut feeling, just the make a right-hand turn. Other times I do have, it's an audible, again, anyone who's heard the Holy Spirit, or it's an audible voice. It's not a daily thing. And sometimes it comes out of the blue, but it definitely does exist.
What can we do to stay positive and change our lives for the good?
The first thing to do is just decide to be happy. We are so bombarded in our society now with social media and the news coverage, and just everything's so negative and toxic around us. Is you need to decide, first of all, just to be happy and to not let that toxicity seep into your energy body. And the other thing is decide where you want to be. I find so much today we're just keeping up with the Joneses, and we're worried about tomorrow instead of worried about 3 years or 5 years. If you look at our ancestors, they were worried about retirement when they were in their 20s and 30s, and today our kids don't even think about things like that. They're more worried about, okay, what are people saying about me on Facebook sort of situation. So you just have to keep moving forward, but have a plan. And I have a change book out, and one thing I truly believe is if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. And so have your plan, as simple as it might be or as complex as it might be, at least have it. And that's why I also think journaling is a great thing. My friends always make fun of my little check boxes that I have. I always have a book I carry with me, and I have these little check boxes, and, do this, and, next year I'd like to do this, and keep my bucket list. And it just becomes a daily habit of mine, and that's what moves me forward every day.
You wrote a book, 180 Ways to Effectively Deal with Change. Can you tell us a little bit about that book?
Yeah, I was actually approached. It's kind of interesting. There's people who want to be published their whole lives. I've kind of always known I would write a book at some point, but never, again, I didn't seek it out. I think if you're following your life's path, then the universe brings to you what you need when you need it. And I was sitting at a dinner I was actually sat on a board of one of the corporations that I owned franchises in. We were in, and I dealt with a lot of our intellectual property, and I dealt a lot with our strategic partnerships. And I actually was talking to a publisher out of Dallas about leveraging some of their intellectual property, and I had gone to dinner one night with the owner of the publisher, and I was kind of telling him a little bit about my own life, and he goes, wow, you need to write a book for me on change. He goes, you are like the queen of change. He started calling me the queen of change, and how to do things and make changes in your life, both personally and professionally, and move forward. And so anyway, I ended up writing that, just a little, so it's not very large. It's kind of that, 1 minute manager type format that you can read it on an airplane, and it is in digital. It was in print, and now they've gone fully digital, and so it is on Amazon. You can get it.
A lot of us struggle with change in our lives. I know that I do. I like things to be just the way they are, and that's, for a lot of us, that's a comfort zone issue. Mm-hmm. How do we go about accepting change so that it doesn't feel uncomfortable for us?
There's a lot of ways to do it. You have to kind of find what works for you. Change, first of all, you have to consider change is a good thing, right? It's like getting married. That's a change, but we consider that a positive thing. Getting a new job is a positive change. Having children is a positive change. So it's all in how you really view how the change is happening in your life, there is one thing one of my mentors taught me, and it's in that book I call The Power of 10%. And it's basically, sometimes it's overwhelming. Like, let's say, for example, you want to lose 100 pounds. Let's say you're drastically overweight, and I want to lose 100 pounds. To think I'm going to lose 100 pounds is overwhelming to most people. That goal seems so far-fetched that you can't obtain it. So what you do is you break it down into 10% increments. You say, okay, I want 100 pounds, but I'm just going to look at the first 10% of that. So I lose that first 10 pounds. Wow, that wasn't so hard, right? So then I go to the next step. Okay, I'm going to lose another 10 pounds. So that power of 10% can really help you strive toward your goal without being so overwhelmed about getting there. Things like getting your education, same way. It's hard to think, I want to become a doctor and I have 8 years of schooling. Well, don't think of it as 8 years of schooling. Think of it again as, okay, I've got the next 8 months to get through my first year, and then the next 8 months, and then the next 8 months. So just break it down. That's probably what I have found helps people the most. Some people are totally resistant to change. And it's funny because God has put a lot of people in my life that don't like change. My ex-husband was a perfect example of that. Hated change, epitome of hating change. And I thrive on it. I love it. I consider it's moving me forward. And I think you just have to view it that way, is move forward. And if you don't like it, just take it in small chunks.
It's definitely seems like it would make things a lot easier that way. I think you're right. I think that's what I realize that now. When you think of change, you think of just the big picture, and taking baby steps makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it's standing in that one spot and you're so comfortable in it and knowing that things have to change for the better in order for you to go forward. And I think that's the hard part for a lot of people is, like you said, marriage is a change, and having children, it doesn't seem to a lot of people like that's a big change. That just seems like, how life normally unfolds. But like when how do you explain that? Like you're in a house and that's your house and you've been there all these years, and that change of having to pick it all up and move somewhere else and start a new mortgage. And to me, that change is overwhelming in a lot of ways. Sometimes you just don't even know how to handle that change. And when things are the same or people are the same around you all the time, and then all of a sudden you come in contact with that one person that's one person most of the time, and then that change. I've gone through that right in my family. I have a daughter who, was one person most of her life, and then she all of a sudden got into a depression, and you don't even know how to handle that next moment.
Mm-hmm.
For me,
you kind of look at it for day by day, right? Day by day, step by step.
Yeah, I do look at it that way, but at the same time, it's the not knowing what step to take first in order to take it step by step.
Mm-hmm. Well, that links us back to our previous conversation about prayer and meditation.
Right.
If you don't know, if you're not getting a natural, intuitive sense of, oh, here's what I do, that's when we pray about it, but then we meditate on it and really listen for the answers.
So,
and God will help you through that.
Are there certain, things you can, different, how do you say that? Little tidbits of things you can say to yourself every day that kind of brings you up and makes you feel better? Is there, certain quotes we can tell ourselves every day?
Oh, well, there's plethora of quotes. There's great quote books out. You can even get and read one a day. One of the things I have done at moments in my life where I really felt overwhelmed, I will put a Post-it on my bathroom window or bathroom mirror, and I will put whatever I feel for that day. Or I believe that laughter is one of the best things to move our life forward. I'm going through a situation with a very close relative who has cancer right now. And I keep saying laughter, laugh every day. It's the best healing. So even if it's as simple as a Post-it on your bathroom mirror that when you're brushing your teeth every morning and every night as you read it and say, whatever that Post-it says that helps you. Did I laugh today, for example? Or what am I grateful for? Name 3 things. You can do things like as soon as you get out of bed, the first thing you do is say, here's what I'm grateful for. And it can be as simple as I'm grateful for the breath that I can take that I'm still here. I'm grateful for my children. I'm grateful for my income. We spend so much of our life, and anyone who studied the law of attraction knows this, we spend so much of our life talking about what we don't have instead of realizing what we do have. And that will diametrically change your life if you do that.
I absolutely agree with that. I hear that constantly. You know, people are so upset and complaining about what they don't have. And sometimes you want to slap them and say, look what you do have. Look. You know, take a look back. Mm-hmm. You have so much compared to, you know, some people in this world that unfortunately don't. So, I mean, that's definitely true.
Yeah, I weeded all the negativity out of my life the last several years. All the negative energy suckers, all of the toxic people who just complain and, you know, moan and groan. The worst thing you can do is be around that every day. You have to shield yourself because it will just suck your energy day in and day out from you. And you won't have anything left for yourself.
I absolutely agree with that. I've lived that, so I know. What can we do to not allow the negativity around us, like the negative people? What can we do to kind of keep ourselves positive for the whole day? When we get up in the morning, do we just tell ourselves that, you know, that today I'm at peace and nobody can take that peace from me today, and we kind of have to, you know, how do we stop the outside world other than meditation? Is there how do we kind of keep ourselves in check to not let somebody else take our peace?
Mm-hmm. I've had some great mentors that I've studied under, and there's a lot of different techniques that I use. First of all, when I wake up, especially if you have that where you just kind of wake up and you almost feel like, gosh, I feel a little off. First thing I do is say, it's going to be a great day. Just put your mindset, even if your body's not feeling it, your mind will tell your body how to feel. The other thing I use a lot, and actually I have one of my clients, it's quite funny, I have used it for several years, is a rose color cylinder. I've done a lot of studying in archangels, and rose is a color that represents a lot of like Archangel Michael, and I will envision myself in this like cylinder. So as soon as I feel like someone talking to me or I'm in a meeting and I just feel like energy is being just literally pulled out of my energetic body, I envision myself in this rose-colored cylinder. And it protects, it's like bouncing their energy back to them. And then if I start getting upset about something that's happening, I'll literally take like flames, I'll envision these flames that I just like throw at my cylinder. And what it does is strengthen it. I'm not literally throwing it at the people, but I'm just throwing those anger flames at that cylinder to really strengthen that energy around me. And I have one of my clients that I go to quite a bit, and there's been times she'll look at me and she goes, "You're in your rose-colored cylinder, aren't you?" She can literally tell that I have just shielded myself from people taking my energy.
Well, that's what I mean. This day and age, it's so easy, it seems like, for us to take each other's energy. Excuse me. When in fact we should be, you know, kind of spreading good energy. It's been quite a walk with me, trying to stay in the positive and such. And for me, I'm somebody who feels what somebody else is going through. I've been that way my whole life. You know, somebody is hurting, and for me, I feel that hurt and I feel that devastation. And when somebody's angry, and they're frustrated and it's coming out on you, for me, I take it to heart. So that's something I have to learn within my own walk, to realize that when somebody's having a bad day, or, something's bothering somebody, it's not always Sue's fault.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's where, you can carry certain, crystals. That's why God's given us so many different grounding techniques that we can really use. You can burn incense. We burn incense in almost any religion to really clear that energy. I sage my house when I feel like, especially if I feel like someone's been in my home that has had a negative energy. First thing I do is I take white sage and I sage my entire home. I burn incense every night in my room. So there's lots. I have crystals that I carry. I work with an energy gal. Love her. She actually has her own radio show too, called Christy Brower, who just changed my life this past year in just pulling some etheric cords and really getting my own energy body to a point, because I speak with so many people and I do a lot in counseling, and you're right, they can just pull it in. The higher you become, the higher you get in yourself and the more energy you get and listening to your higher self, you will start noticing that. I can be standing, and people, it's funny because people who are close to me now realize it. I can be in a room, whether it's in a restaurant or whether it's in a shop or whether it is at a client, and people can see me physically change because I can feel the energy pull.
Yep, absolutely.
And the difference is, used to 10 years ago, I would let them pull me with them. And there's nothing worse. Gossip and all that. You can just get pulled into that with people. The worst thing that you could do. Just stay away from any of that toxic energy. Be happy. Surround yourself with happy people. Put Post-its. I'm always putting, if I'm at client sites or if I'm at my house or if I'm at my own office space, I'm always putting Post-its up with sayings, whatever I feel like I'm being told by the universe that day. Because what works for you isn't necessarily what works for me. That's why we teach so many different ways.
What crystals can we go out and get that actually will help us? I
am not a crystallologist by any means. I would highly suggest the woman that I love the most, and I do have a New Age shop near me that I get some of my crystals, but Christy Brower, KristiBrower.com. I use her for all my energy healing, and she she has 3 sisters. They're called the Psychic Sisters. They actually have a shop, and she cleanses the crystals before, because you really shouldn't let anyone use your crystals, so I get everything from her, and it says on there, because you need different things based on what you need, what your healing process is. And so, I love, for some reason, Snowflake Obsidian is a big one I carry in my pocket. It's kind of my gratitude rock. It's just something I'm drawn to, or go to any shop and just pick out what really you're drawn to. But if you have something specific you're wanting, I would definitely go on her site, and she ships them to you personally, so you know that they're true crystals, and she actually digs them out of the mountains, and so.
That's very interesting. I know that there are certain, for people who are into religion, there's certain the medal, the St. Christopher medal, and there's different things like that people can carry as well. They have specific positive energy or healing or protection as well, and that stuff. I think the motivation in this world, and that's why I think you're great for what you do. And we need the motivation as a human race. We need the motivation to change the negative into positive, so that we can have the life that we were made to have.
Mm-hmm. And number one, Sue, it comes with a choice. The first page of my change book, it talks about we choose, and I talk about you choose to love, or you choose to hate, you choose happiness, or you choose sadness. Number one, you can choose. I don't care if you're from an abusive, background or not. You choose. Every day you wake up, you choose the life that you want to live. And people say, well, that's not true because my spouse impacts it or my kids impact it or I work for this jerk boss. Well, you know what? If you work for a jerk boss, then go find a new job. I mean, you choose. You choose every day to do what you do. And I, starting in 2010 when I sold my last business, I actually tell people I downsized my life to upsize my happiness. I went from a 4,000 square foot home to a 1,500 square foot, like villa, where I don't have to worry about the outside maintenance or the yard work or anything else. So it's, you choose, and I'm much happier than when I used to have 3 homes and a lake house and a boat and Sea-Doos and, all the toys in life. I'm much happier than when I had that 10 years ago. I downsized my life to upsize my happiness, and I made that choice. And people think, happiness, especially in the U.S. today, it comes with keeping up with the Joneses, the bigger house. But you know what? It's not the cash, the cars. It goes back to the old adage, you can't take it with you. So you choose.
I agree. I think happiness it comes from within instead of our material possessions. And I look around these days and everybody seems to be, so many people are so just filled up with possessions. My new truck, my new this, my new that. And it's like, what about people? It seems like we're so busy with material possessions and so wrapped up in that stuff that we forget to, you text somebody. What happened to sitting down and having a conversation with them over a cup of coffee? It's always over the phone or texting, or my children text me from downstairs. My mother calls me from downstairs. That stuff, we need to get back to, being more about people, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that's one of my biggest irritations. When I take time out of my own schedule to go meet someone for a cup of coffee or dinner, and they're sitting there texting, I've actually contemplated recently, and I'm just going to get up and leave, get my keys and leave. I just put the phones away. And the only time I ever have my phone out in a meeting or if I am out is if my children, who they're teens, but if they're at home by themselves, I always say, I'm sorry, I do need to leave my phone out just in case my children need me for some reason. And my daughter laughs because her girlfriends will come over, and if we're watching a movie, I'm like, put your phones away. I'm not going to sit here and watch a movie while you guys are on your phone.
Oh, so, I know. I get frustrated. I have 4 girls, and 3 of them have phones, and you can't sit and watch a movie without them being on their phones. You're trying to have a conversation with them, and they're still texting right in the middle of the conversation. And I get to the point sometimes where I tell them, you want to schedule me in on that phone so maybe you can put it down and listen. You can't watch a movie. You just, there's no family time. I mean, whatever happened to cuddling up with your significant other and watching a movie and, everything seems to be technology these days. And it kind of, to me, feels like we've lost track of each other.
Yeah, my children know, their phone, well, my son doesn't have one now. It got taken away. But my daughter, she knows you have it in your room. It doesn't come to my dinner table. It doesn't come into the living room. I just don't allow it. And my kids are great at communicating with adults, and people are like, wow, your kids are just really good at communication. I said, yeah, because I make them communicate. I make them talk to me and not sit on their phones. So it's a big pet peeve of mine. I call it the electronic handcuff. I said, we're just so in this electronic handcuff in society.
I have to figure that out because I have a 13-year-old who is on the computer from the moment she walks in the door. And I can get her to get off that computer long enough to do dishes or something, but I'm constantly telling her, go outside and play with your sisters, go outside, go outside. And she does not want to move from that computer because she might miss something, whatever these new singing groups are that I can't keep up with these days. And there's nothing that this kid does not know about YouTube or a song that's brand new 5 minutes ago. There's nothing they don't know about that, but go outside and jump on the trampoline. Oh, Mom, that takes effort. Oh, Mom, I have to leave this chair and this computer and something might happen while I'm gone. Oh, I get so frustrated.
Well, easy enough. there's software stuff out there like Net Nanny is one of my favorite. If you go to netnanny.com, and I put it on a lot of my friends' computers for their kids, and basically you can lock down time frames and sites they can go to and say, okay, you can be on every night from 6 to 7, so make the best of your time. So that's the first thing, is take the bull by the horns. And the other thing I truly believe is never, ever put a computer in a child's room, ever. I mean, I owned IT businesses for years. I used to be an engineer. The first thing I say is never put a computer in a child's room. My kids know phones go off. When at 9 o'clock at night, rule is no phones. And I check the logs, and they get the phone taken away if they're on past 9.
That's a good idea. My two younger ones.
I even got to the point they had to bring their phones into my room. I had a charger, and I took the phones, and they stayed in my room for a while. Now they can keep them in there, so as soon as I check the bill. My daughter came home one day from high school, and she said she was just laughing. They had seen something, I don't know where she saw, they was at school, and it said, you may be able to delete the text, but you can't delete the bill.
Very true.
Because I tell her, I can say, you texted this many texts. Oh, you texted this person this much. I mean, I check it, and it's not about micromanaging. It's making sure they're safe, too, and they have a quality of life.
Absolutely. My 13-year-old does not have a computer in her room, but I do have to cut down the computer time. I think that they get so wrapped up in what's going on the internet, and that's my biggest problem here is just, what happened to my two older ones are 19 and 20, so they're old enough now where they do pretty much what they want to, but, even when my 19-year-old is here, she says, let's go out on the trampoline. Let's go outside. Let's go for a walk. And you still got to pry that phone from her hands up a lot of the times. But, she understands a little bit. We were on the lake one day and her phone didn't work. She didn't have any reception or something. And she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. This was when she was about like 16 or 17. I don't know what I'm going to do. My phone doesn't work. And now I'm mad. And she's all frustrated. And as we spent the time on the lake and we walked and we laughed, she said, you know what? I'm glad my phone didn't work because I got to enjoy.
Exactly.
Yep. So I think it's taking that away a little bit and showing them what they're missing sometimes really helps.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you do a lot of speaking in your about child abuse and such. For me, my passion is missing people. I'm very active in getting out the word for every missing person that I come across, whether it be on Facebook or wherever I can find them. How did you go about becoming a speaker for what you do?
It just kind of happened, to be honest. And again, I think if you do the prayer and the meditation, the universe, I kind of have this whole thing lately. I tell people, take your oars out of the water and basically keep going downstream, quit trying to paddle upstream. And once I kind of took my oars out of the water, the universe took me where I was supposed to be. I never even spoke about it till I was 35. And when I really spoke about it publicly was when I was 40, and I was inducted into the High School Hall of Fame for a bunch of work I'd done. And that was really my first, and that speech is out on my website, that was really the first time I really talked about it openly. And from that, I just had people then, like Child Abuse Prevention Association asked me to come speak at their annual fundraiser, and then the National Association for Mentally Ill asked me to come speak at one of their platinum sponsorships, and it just kind of happened. It was just one of those, life started taking me down that road. So I didn't really go out and seek it out. It just happened.
I look at people like, what you've gone through and the fact that you come out so positive on the other end. And I look at people like Joyce Meyer. I've learned so much from her over the years. And in the way she teaches is through her experience of what she's been through. And to me, that's a very important thing. I'm glad that you're out there talking and that you share what it is you've gone through to help the next person, so that they can be stronger and they don't have to go through that. Has this been a very hard walk for you?
Some days it definitely gets easier. Some days are better than others. There's definitely triggers. Something you think you're doing fine, and then there's just some trigger that happens that you have a flashback to. Last year when I was writing a trilogy and then working, I was actually out in Southern California working last summer with a film scriptwriter I'd gone out there to work with, and I just was like, you have flashback after flashback, and some days it was fine, I could do the writing, and next day you're having a meltdown because you're reliving it. So it's just you take it again a day at a time, and I want to be the person I am today, not the person I was 20 years ago, and so that's what keeps me going, is realizing. And I wish I knew 20 years ago what I know today, and that's really my biggest mission, and that's why I do what I do. I wish I was very angry in my 20s. I owned my own businesses. I was managing businesses at the age of 23, and I didn't know how to, I didn't even know how to deal with my own what was going on, let alone deal with my staff's issues. And I wish I knew 20 years ago what I know now. And that's really what I want to do, is help people not waste 20 years of their life at learning it the hard way, which is what I felt I needed to do. Because you can read all you want about power of positive thinking and this or that, or Christian books, or, whether it's, books on motivation or Zig Ziglar or whatever. But when you come from a child abuse background, you can talk to therapists, and I am not a therapist. When I tell people that, I'm more of a life coach. I just think you have to find what works for you, but yet you need someone to help you say you can do it and kind of head down that path. And empathize. A lot of it is empathy. So many people say, oh, just get over it. Well, that sounds easy, but that's not just something you do overnight. Just get over it.
Unless you walk in those shoes, it's easier said than done. I agree with that. Can you tell our listeners, for those out there who are going through any kind of abuse, whether it be verbal, physical, or sexual, can you give them advice that can start them in a healing process today?
First thing I always say, I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it another 1,000, is number one, admit it's happening. I can't believe how many people I know who are in an abusive relationship and they're in denial it's happening. And not only personal, but in work I see it. People who are being abused by their bosses, they're, oh, you're so great one minute, and they're just degrading them the next. And I'm like, this is like a domestic violence situation. So the first thing is you have to admit it's happening. That's number one, because most people, it takes years. I know with my child abuse, it took me 20 years to even admit that it happened. So first step to me is just admitting, and then you can start your healing process. Then decide, what do I want my life to look like? Do I want to stay in this self-pity and, oh, poor me, or do I want to keep this cycle going where I've been very blessed. A lot of people from child abuse backgrounds end up in domestic violence situations. I did not. I have been married twice and divorced twice. I'm still good friends with my second ex-husband. Very caring, loving man. It was not a domestic violence. You do find that a lot. And so that's when you're starting to break your cycle, is that you start surrounding yourself by different people and realize what you want your life to be like.
What about the people who fear coming forward?
You have to first ask yourself, what's that fear? One thing we find a lot is that, especially when females are being abused, and there are just as many males being abused. I know sometimes, people kind of, cringe at that, but statistics show us that 52% are female and 48% are male. Is with the females, they usually have this fear of losing their primary income. So whether it's in a domestic violence where it's the woman being abused by the man, well, what's she going to do if she leaves, right? Well, there's lots of shelters and help and out there. We see a lot of situations with child abuse where the perpetrator is either the father, the stepfather, or the boyfriend of the mother. And the mother will know it's happening, but, well, this is my primary breadwinner. What am I going to do if he goes to prison? And that's a sad thing because they've made it about them instead of about, the child that's being abused. That happened in my situation. People knew I was being abused. I was sexually molested by my uncle for years. My aunt knew it. She chose to still live with the man. He would abuse in one place. She would just move. They would move to a different city was kind of what they do. And so it was, no one protects. She didn't protect me or those other children. So it goes to show her weakness, right? I mean, it takes a strong person to say, no, this isn't going to happen, and we need to stand up and have safe havens for these people where they can go and be safe. There are places like St. Louis Lydia's House is a great organization who helps women who are in domestic violence situations.
Well, I know sometimes it's about whether it be a man or a woman, the abuse that they receive physically from their spouse, or the verbal abuse that keeps them there, makes them feel like they're not capable or good enough to get out of the situation, kind of like they deserve what they're getting.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, for those that are afraid to leave because they're afraid of their spouse, how would they go about getting out of that situation safely?
Well, first of all, go talk to someone you trust, whether it's a pastor, a priest, a law enforcement officer, a friend, whoever. Go to someone that you can actually be honest with and divulge all the information and know that they're going to help. There's also a lot of organizations. Churches are probably the first place to start that they should help you find a safe haven. So there is help out there. As far as child abuse, if something's happened, we do have a website called Abuse is No Excuse. It's a very basic site just to kind of give you a place to go. There is a national hotline, 1-800, the number 4-a-child, so you can report child abuse. Even domestic abuse, you could call and say, I need help, and where do I go? There are many, many organizations out there to help you. The first thing is you have to be able to seek that help. So admit it's happening and say, I want help. And visualize, again, what you want your life to look like. I mean, if you don't want to be in this situation in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, then you need to do something to get out of that.
So for these kids who are abused by their parents or, an adult that's very active in their life, should they go to a counselor at school or, start in a place like that where it's a little bit more safe for them?
Yes. That's the number one, probably best place for them to go is the school counseling system. They can also call that hotline. The child can call that hotline. There are places they can report it, but probably their safe haven would be their school counselor. I definitely would agree with that. It's a good starting point.
Well, I think it's important to get this out to these people because there's a lot of people out there, whether it's, in verbal abuse, a lot of people don't understand when they're going through it is verbal abuse is just as bad as physical abuse. I mean,
Yeah, I say it's almost worse, and I've said that in many interviews, is, the scars do heal, but the mental, even my mom disappeared almost 20 years ago, and things will happen in my life, but I hear her negativity or criticism in my head telling me I'm not good enough, you're not going to amount to anything. I mean, you still hear that in your head. So that is something that lives with you, I just think, longer than anything. It's the verbal.
I absolutely agree with that 100%. I just, it's great to have somebody out there who, for these people that are going through it so that they know where they can turn and that they do have a chance and that they can get out of this. This is not something that they have to live with.
Mm-hmm. No, and again, it's your choice. And I know some people say, well, it's not my choice. Yeah, in the United States of America, it is your choice. Now, I do know that there are some countries that the laws really do not protect the women and the children. But in the United States of America, the land of the free, we have penal codes that protect us in these situations. And you just need to go seek that help.
Absolutely. That's very important to me that we get that word out there. I mean, there's so many people, in what I think the things that I don't understand is what causes some of these people to stay in these abusive relationships when they know they're not healthy, and they still stay anyway. They're unhappy, they're miserable, and they're constantly being, whether it's verbally abused or physically abused, it's constant, and they stay anyway. I mean, what causes these people to stay there?
Well, again, I'm not a therapist, but traditionally I would say it's fear or insecurities. It's fear of the unknown. Well, if I leave, where am I going to go? How am I going to support myself? What's going to happen? Are they going to track me down? Or it's just insecurities, that they're so insecure with their own self-worth that they don't realize there's a better life out there. There's a better relationship out there. And again, I see in the workplace, people need to realize there's a better job out there. There's a better boss out there. I mean, whatever. And that's where I think prayer and meditation is just such a pinnacle part of the healing process. And asking for help and knowing where to go to get it.
I had a job like that where, 1 minute my boss would praise you up and down, and then he would pull you in the office and basically, you were, the things that he said were, he made me cry like 3 times. And, after the second time, when the third time happened, that was it. I was there to work and I was doing the best of my ability. And that's just not acceptable to me. And I walked from that job, and that's what I encourage these people out there to do as well. I mean, as you said, go get a different job. Do you report that boss? Do you report him to the corporate office? Is that what you do when you have a boss that's like that?
It depends, right? Depends on the size of the corporation. If it's obviously a business with a large enough company, or a large enough company will have like an HR department. I mean, if it's a small, entrepreneurial type situation, a lot of times it's the person who runs the company who is that way. So I also, on the other flip side of that, I see a lot of employees who will complain about any boss they ever have. So, I mean, there is a flip side to that too, right? I mean, people who always think, okay, I can do so much better than my boss, and they'll think that about 20 bosses that they have. If that is true, then you need to start looking from within. So Absolutely. I'm not saying that everybody who thinks they have a bad boss means it's a bad boss.
Right.
We've all managed people, and so I do a lot in executive coaching, and I do a lot in like workshop coaching for executives, which is one of the things I love about my career. And one thing I tell them, I remember being in H&R Block, I was actually hired to go to 7 cities and to do a coaching workshop with all of their vice presidents. And I remember in Detroit, I told they were talking about, employees and this or that. And I said, isn't it ironic that we spend like the first 20 years of our career trying to get into management, and then we spend the next 20 trying to figure out how to get out and still make the same income.
Right.
Because everyone says, oh, I'll be this great manager, and da-da-da. And once you get there, you realize, oh, my goodness, just, personalities and difference of people. And so it's not always that there are bad bosses. So I do want to emphasize that.
Oh, I agree. I've had some amazing bosses in my life. I just ran into one who just seemed like, it wasn't only me that he did it to. And I knew that because people came to me and said, he makes me, he's made me cry too. And it's just the way he puts you down, like, and to me that was not acceptable. So I had to walk away from that job. And it's hard for me. It's very hard for me to work for somebody else. I mean, I love what I do. I love radio. I love to sit down and interview somebody and find out who they are and what they do. I love learning about new people and the things that they do, but I love to learn about the person behind what they do as well. So I love what I do, and a lot of times when you're spoiled that way, it's very hard to work for somebody else.
Mhm. It is. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you are amazing, and I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on and talk with us. This stuff that we've talked about is very important. If we can save one person and get them out of an abusive situation, to me, that's very important. That our kids know and even the adults know that there is a way out and you have a choice.
Mhm. You do have a choice, and that's what I would just kind of summarize it as we end here is choose to be happy. And if you have to put a Post-it on your mirror so you see it every morning and every night, just say, I choose happiness. I choose happiness. And if you really change your mindset, I guarantee your life experiences will follow. I am living proof of that.
Can you tell us what books you've written and give us your websites here so that we can come on and check you out?
Sure. I have one book you already mentioned, 180 Ways to Effectively Deal with Change. And it just gives you a lot of kind of life skills, and it's especially geared toward work situations and how to motivate your teams and games you can play and move toward changes. And then I have another book called Inspiring Passion in Others, and it is actually a 4-color gift book. We actually incorporate that a lot with my speaking engagement, and it's based on a poem I wrote back in 2005 about, again, finding your passion in life and choosing happiness and deciding not to sit in a dark room, really live your life very bright. And then I'm in the process right now of writing the trilogy, which is basically a memoir about the story of my life. But that is not out, and we do not have a release date for that right now.
Other than
my
that,
website is www.lauriecalzada.com. That's Laurie Calzada, CALZADA.com. That's my primary site.
can you tell us when we can look forward to your book coming out, your new one?
We do not have a release date right now. We are actually working on a lot of different things. We are in negotiations for a syndicated radio show, so we put all that on hold really because we're working on that. And that would probably be a late night radio show on really surviving and thriving and kind of what we're doing here, but allowing people to call in and really say, where do I get help? Here's my situation, blah, blah, blah.
Well, I definitely look forward to the release of your new book, and I wish you luck on your syndication and your new radio show.
Okay, thanks so much, Sue. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much, and you have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, guys, that was a great interview. She's made a lot of good points, and I just want everybody out there listening to know that if you are in an abusive situation, whether it be verbal or physical or sexual, you do have a choice and you can get out. And I'm so glad that she took the time to come on with us and tell us how to go about first realizing that it is, admitting that it is happening, and secondly, taking the steps that it takes and making the choice to get out of it. She is absolutely great. And, I strongly suggest you go on her site. She has a blog on her site as well that's very interesting. And maybe check out her books. We've got to end this. We've got to end all the abuse in this world. And this is the first step in doing it. And I'm very, very honored that she was on our show. Well, that's all we have time for today, and we post our shows on YouTube. And if you want to know more about our guests and upcoming shows, please visit our info2rail website. Just Google info2rail and click on our Google Sites page. From there, you can get to YouTube, or you can just Google that and go to YouTube from there. We want to thank you all for joining us here at info2rail. You guys are what makes this happen, between the guests and the listeners. You guys are what makes this all possible. And I want to thank you and tell you how much I appreciate you all. I hope to see you here each week. May God bless you and keep you, and may His face shine upon you in these uncertain times. We'll see you soon.